There are people who walk into a room and somehow change the atmosphere without saying much. They are not always loud, charismatic, or demanding attention. In fact, many of them remain quiet observers, standing in the background while somehow understanding the emotions of everyone around them. If you have ever felt different from others, if people often misunderstand your intentions, or if you somehow see through masks faster than most people, there is a possibility that you carry traits often associated with a Heyoka empath. This is not about fantasy or superiority. It is about understanding why certain people move through life feeling emotionally intense, deeply observant, and strangely disconnected from ordinary social patterns. A Heyoka empath often experiences life in reverse. Where others react emotionally, they analyze. Where others hide truth, they somehow expose it without trying. And while this gift sounds powerful, it can also feel isolating. The first sign often appears in the way you naturally mirror people without effort. Many individuals spend years learning body language, emotional cues, and social signals, yet for someone with strong empathic awareness, these patterns happen automatically. You notice shifts in tone, tension, hidden frustration, and emotional contradictions before words even reveal them. Someone may smile at you while carrying resentment, and something inside you immediately feels off. You may not even know why at first. It is simply a feeling that grows stronger over time until reality confirms what your instincts already sensed. This ability is not magic. It comes from a heightened sensitivity to emotional patterns that most people ignore. The challenge is that people often become uncomfortable around someone who unconsciously reflects their true emotional state back at them. A powerful empath does not always attract peaceful experiences. In many cases, difficult people are strangely drawn toward them. Manipulative personalities, emotionally unstable individuals, or people carrying unresolved pain often feel magnetized to someone who deeply understands emotion. This happens because emotional awareness naturally exposes what others try to hide. Some people admire this energy, others fear it. Many become defensive without fully understanding why. If your presence seems to trigger strong reactions in people, even when you are calm, it may not be random. Deep emotional perception tends to make hidden emotions rise to the surface. Some individuals appreciate honesty, others resent anyone who unintentionally reveals the truth they are trying to avoid. The second sign appears in your unusual relationship with truth. You may have noticed that pretending feels physically exhausting to you. Small talk, fake behavior, forced connections, and artificial personalities drain your energy faster than difficult work ever could. You are not interested in polished masks. You instinctively search for authenticity, even when it makes life harder. Many people settle for surface-level comfort because truth can feel uncomfortable. Yet for someone deeply empathic, dishonesty feels heavier than conflict itself. You would rather face an uncomfortable reality than live inside a beautiful illusion. This sometimes causes tension in relationships because not everyone appreciates honesty delivered through emotional insight. Many highly empathic people spend years feeling misunderstood because they naturally challenge emotional illusions without trying. You may notice contradictions in people before they notice them themselves. Someone says they are happy, but you feel sadness underneath. Someone acts confident, but insecurity quietly leaks through every word. This emotional contradiction becomes difficult to ignore. Over time, you may stop explaining yourself because people often interpret your perception as criticism when, in reality, you are simply noticing what already exists. The strongest empathic people eventually learn something important. Not everyone wants healing. Not everyone wants honesty. Some people only want comfort, even when comfort slowly destroys them. The third sign often feels confusing at first because it involves humor, contradiction, and emotional reversal. You may naturally use unexpected observations to break emotional tension. Instead of comforting people in predictable ways, you unintentionally challenge their perspective. Sometimes your words sound blunt, ironic, or strangely insightful. You may even joke during emotionally intense moments, not because you lack compassion, but because you instinctively understand that emotional heaviness often needs disruption. This quality can confuse people who expect traditional emotional support. Yet what looks unusual on the outside often carries wisdom underneath. Some of the deepest healing happens when a person suddenly sees themselves differently. Emotionally powerful people often understand that growth rarely comes through comfort alone. Real transformation begins when illusions collapse. This explains why many highly sensitive individuals unintentionally become catalysts for change. Relationships around them shift quickly. False friendships disappear. Hidden resentment rises. Emotional patterns break apart. It can feel lonely when people leave after being confronted by truth, even unintentionally. But not everyone is meant to stay. Some relationships exist only until the lesson becomes clear. Emotional maturity begins when you stop chasing approval from people who only valued the version of you that stayed silent. The fourth sign appears in your emotional exhaustion after spending time around certain people. You may notice that crowded environments, drama, emotional manipulation, or fake personalities leave you mentally drained. Even without conflict, something feels heavy. This is because deep emotional awareness processes far more information than ordinary conversation. While others hear words, you unconsciously notice tone shifts, emotional tension, insecurity, dishonesty, sadness, and unspoken emotional needs all at once. Over time, this emotional overload becomes exhausting. Many empathic individuals mistakenly believe something is wrong with them because they become tired faster than others in emotionally chaotic situations. What often changes everything is realizing sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity without boundaries becomes suffering. Sensitivity with awareness becomes strength. Learning to protect your energy is not selfish. It is necessary. Some people believe kindness means endless sacrifice, but true emotional intelligence understands limits. You cannot save everyone. You cannot heal everyone. Some individuals repeatedly choose chaos because chaos feels familiar. Carrying everyone's emotional burden will eventually leave you empty. Strong empathy does not mean abandoning yourself to rescue people who refuse to grow. The fifth sign involves emotional intuition that feels impossible to explain logically. You may sense outcomes before they happen, not through supernatural ability, but through observation so fast it feels invisible. You notice emotional patterns, inconsistencies, energy shifts, and behavioral repetitions. Eventually, your mind begins predicting outcomes before evidence fully appears. You may have experienced moments where you quietly knew a friendship would end, a relationship would change, or someone's intentions were dishonest long before proof arrived. At first, you ignored these instincts. Later, experience taught you they were rarely wrong. Many emotionally intelligent people struggle because society rewards visible intelligence more than emotional perception. Logic gets respected. Sensitivity gets dismissed. Observation gets underestimated. Yet, emotional awareness is one of the strongest survival skills a person can develop. The ability to recognize emotional manipulation, hidden insecurity, false confidence, and unresolved pain protects you from many situations others walk into blindly. This awareness is not about becoming suspicious. It is about becoming conscious. People reveal themselves constantly. Most simply fail to notice. The sixth sign often appears through emotional isolation. Even when surrounded by people, you sometimes feel strangely alone. Not because nobody exists around you, but because genuine emotional connection feels rare. You may crave conversations that go beyond appearances, trends, and surface-level distractions. You seek meaning, emotional honesty, and real understanding. Unfortunately, this desire can create loneliness because deep emotional connection is uncommon. Many people stay busy to avoid themselves. Few are willing to sit with emotional truth. This sometimes causes empathic individuals to withdraw, preferring solitude over relationships that feel emotionally empty. Yet solitude should never become emotional imprisonment. Isolation can heal, but too much of it creates emotional walls. The strongest people eventually learn balance. They stop searching for perfect understanding and instead appreciate meaningful connection where it naturally appears. They stop forcing relationships that constantly feel one-sided. They stop shrinking themselves to fit environments that reject authenticity. Emotional maturity means understanding that being understood by everyone is impossible. What matters is finding people who value honesty, growth, and emotional depth. The seventh sign may be the most powerful of all. You naturally expose hidden emotional truths without trying. People often feel emotionally seen around you, even when they are not ready for it. Some admire your presence because they finally feel understood. Others become uncomfortable because being emotionally visible feels threatening. This is why your relationships may sometimes feel intense. You unintentionally encourage transformation simply by existing authentically. Some people rise because of it, others disappear because truth feels too uncomfortable. Real power is often misunderstood. Society teaches people that power looks loud, dominant, and emotionally cold, but emotional awareness carries its own kind of strength, the ability to remain kind without becoming weak, the ability to recognize manipulation without becoming bitter, the ability to understand pain without allowing pain to define you. These qualities create resilience that many people never fully develop. Emotional wisdom grows through experience, heartbreak, disappointment, healing, and self-awareness. One of the hardest lessons deeply empathic individuals learn is that not every battle deserves participation. You do not need to explain yourself to every misunderstanding. You do not need to defend your peace against people committed to chaos. Walking away is not weakness. Protecting your energy is not selfishness. Distance becomes necessary when emotional survival is at risk. The strongest people stop fighting for acceptance from those determined to misunderstand them. Over time, self-awareness changes everything. Instead of feeling cursed by sensitivity, you begin recognizing it as direction. Instead of absorbing everyone's emotions, you learn to observe without drowning. Instead of fearing rejection, you stop abandoning yourself for approval. Growth happens quietly. Confidence grows internally. Peace becomes more important than validation. Emotional clarity becomes stronger than confusion. Being deeply empathic does not mean life becomes easier. In many ways, it becomes harder because you notice more, feel more, and understand more than others often realize. Yet awareness also creates freedom. Once you understand yourself, manipulation loses power, emotional confusion fades, toxic patterns become easier to recognize, boundaries become stronger, healing becomes intentional. The people who once made you doubt yourself slowly lose influence because you begin trusting what you sense. You stop apologizing for seeing what others deny. You stop shrinking your awareness to make uncomfortable people feel comfortable. You stop explaining your depth to people committed to misunderstanding it. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all begins to settle quietly inside you. Your sensitivity was never the problem. The problem was learning how to carry it without losing yourself. There comes a moment in life when deeply empathic people begin noticing a painful pattern. They spend years trying to fix situations that were never theirs to repair. They become emotional translators in broken relationships, silent healers in chaotic environments, and emotional support systems for people who rarely return the same care. At first, this feels natural because understanding others becomes second nature. But eventually, exhaustion arrives. The emotional weight becomes impossible to ignore. You start realizing that constantly saving people often leaves you emotionally abandoned. One of the biggest turning points for someone with strong empathic tendencies is understanding that compassion without boundaries slowly becomes self-destruction. For many emotionally sensitive people, childhood or early experiences shape the way they interact with the world. Maybe you became observant because peace around you felt unpredictable. Maybe you learned to read moods quickly because emotional safety depended on understanding people before problems appeared. Over time, emotional awareness became survival. You learned to recognize tension before arguments started, disappointment before words were spoken, and dishonesty before evidence appeared. What once protected you eventually became part of your identity. The problem begins when survival habits follow you into adulthood. You continue overanalyzing, overhelping, and overgiving even in situations where protection is no longer necessary. Many highly sensitive individuals unknowingly become emotional mirrors for everyone around them. People feel strangely comfortable opening up to you, sharing secrets they tell no one else, or revealing vulnerabilities without understanding why. Sometimes complete strangers trust you instantly. Other times, emotionally wounded people seem magnetically drawn toward your presence. At first, this may feel meaningful, even rewarding, but there is another side to this experience that rarely gets discussed. People often enjoy being understood while resisting accountability. They appreciate emotional support but reject emotional honesty. The moment truth appears, resistance begins. Suddenly, the same people who once admired your understanding become uncomfortable with your insight. This is where emotional maturity becomes essential. There is a major difference between helping someone heal and carrying responsibility for their choices. One empowers growth. The other creates emotional dependence. Many empathic individuals spend years trapped in relationships where they confuse suffering with loyalty. They believe patience will change someone, understanding will fix dysfunction, or unconditional care will eventually inspire respect. But reality teaches difficult lessons. You cannot love someone into self-awareness. You cannot sacrifice enough to force emotional maturity into another person. Growth only happens when someone chooses it. A deeply empathic person eventually learns to recognize emotional manipulation in all its forms. Manipulation rarely arrives looking dangerous. Sometimes it appears as guilt. Sometimes it disguises itself as helplessness. Other times, it hides behind charm, inconsistency, or emotional chaos. Manipulative people often create confusion because confusion weakens boundaries. One moment they seek closeness, the next moment they create distance. One day they appreciate your support, the next day they make you feel responsible for their pain. This emotional inconsistency creates exhaustion, and emotionally aware individuals often blame themselves before recognizing the pattern. But self-awareness changes everything. Once patterns become visible, emotional control begins to disappear. You slowly realize something important. Peace is expensive. It costs old habits, unhealthy attachments, unrealistic expectations, and sometimes even people you deeply care about. Emotional growth often feels painful because it demands honesty. It forces you to accept that some relationships only survived because you tolerated things that slowly damaged your well-being. This realization hurts because empathic people naturally see potential in others. They believe people can grow. They believe healing is possible. And sometimes it is, but belief should never replace reality. Caring about someone does not mean ignoring behavior that repeatedly harms you. One of the strongest signs of emotional growth is learning when silence becomes protection rather than weakness. In earlier stages of life, you may have felt compelled to explain yourself constantly. You wanted others to understand your intentions. You defended your kindness, clarified misunderstandings, and repeatedly tried fixing conflicts that should never have been yours alone. Over time, something changes. You stop chasing understanding from people determined to misunderstand you. You stop wasting emotional energy proving your worth. You begin recognizing that peace often arrives through acceptance, not explanation. There is also a hidden loneliness that many emotionally perceptive people carry quietly. You can understand others deeply while feeling deeply misunderstood yourself. People may admire your strength without realizing how exhausted you feel. They may seek your advice while rarely asking how you are doing. Sometimes others become so used to your emotional resilience that they assume you never struggle. This creates emotional isolation because being emotionally intelligent does not remove the need for support. Even the strongest people need safe places to feel understood. Healing begins when you stop viewing emotional sensitivity as something shameful. Society often praises emotional detachment because detachment looks powerful from a distance. Yet emotional numbness is not strength. Avoidance is not confidence. Real strength appears when someone can remain emotionally open without becoming emotionally destroyed. It is the ability to care deeply without abandoning boundaries. It is the ability to stay compassionate without accepting disrespect. It is the ability to recognize pain without allowing pain to control your identity. Many emotionally aware people eventually reach a point where they no longer tolerate environments that constantly drain them. Loud chaos becomes exhausting. Fake connections lose appeal. Drama stops feeling exciting and starts feeling heavy. This shift surprises people around you because your standards quietly change. You no longer chase attention. You value peace more than popularity. You stop trying to fit into spaces that require shrinking yourself. Emotional clarity creates different priorities. Suddenly, protecting your inner peace feels more important than being liked. Growth also changes the way you respond to criticism. Earlier in life, criticism may have hurt deeply because you naturally internalized emotions. You replayed conversations, analyzed every interaction, and wondered whether you caused disappointment. But emotional maturity creates emotional distance from unnecessary judgment. You begin asking yourself better questions. Is this feedback constructive or controlling? Is this person speaking from wisdom or insecurity? Is this criticism helping growth or projecting unresolved pain? Not every opinion deserves emotional access to your mind. One painful truth many empathic people eventually face is realizing that some people only loved access to your energy, not you as a person. They appreciated your listening, emotional labor, patience, and forgiveness. But the moment you created boundaries, everything changed. Suddenly, you seemed distant, selfish, or difficult. What really changed was availability. People comfortable benefiting from unlimited access often struggle when limits appear. Boundaries reveal intentions faster than words ever could. You may also notice that your intuition grows stronger after periods of healing. Emotional confusion decreases when chaos leaves your life. Your inner voice becomes clearer because emotional noise no longer overwhelms it. Situations that once confused you suddenly become obvious. Red flags appear sooner. Emotional inconsistency feels easier to identify. Trust becomes intentional instead of automatic. You stop ignoring discomfort simply because someone has good potential. Potential means nothing without consistent behavior. There is wisdom in learning to leave situations before they completely break you. Many emotionally sensitive people stay too long because they fear disappointing others. They tolerate disrespect, emotional neglect, dishonesty, and imbalance while hoping things will improve. Yet every ignored boundary slowly weakens self-respect. Eventually, you understand something painful but freeing. Staying where you are repeatedly harmed does not make you loyal. Sometimes it simply means you forgot your own value. The strongest transformation often happens quietly. No dramatic announcement appears. No sudden confidence arrives overnight. Instead, healing grows through small decisions, saying no without guilt, walking away without endless explanation, choosing rest without feeling lazy, protecting peace without apologizing, trusting yourself even when others disagree. Growth rarely feels dramatic while it happens. It feels subtle, uncomfortable, and deeply personal. Many empathic individuals spend years searching for people who understand them completely. While meaningful connection matters, healing also comes from understanding yourself. When you finally stop fighting your own emotional depth, everything changes. You stop treating sensitivity like weakness. You stop apologizing for caring deeply. You stop seeing emotional awareness as something that isolates you. Instead, you begin understanding it as direction. It teaches discernment. It reveals truth. It helps protect you from situations built on dishonesty. You also begin realizing that emotional strength does not mean carrying everything alone. Asking for support becomes courage, not weakness. Rest becomes responsibility, not laziness. Taking space becomes healing, not avoidance. Life becomes lighter when you stop trying to earn love through exhaustion. The right relationships never demand emotional self-destruction as proof of loyalty. Some people will never understand your emotional depth because depth feels uncomfortable to those committed to emotional avoidance. That is not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for making yourself smaller to protect people from self-reflection. Your role is not to rescue everyone from their own emotional patterns. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is step back and allow others to face consequences that growth requires. With time, something remarkable begins happening. The same sensitivity that once overwhelmed you starts guiding you. You stop fearing your emotional awareness and start trusting it. You become more selective about who receives access to your energy. You stop chasing people who constantly create confusion. You stop begging for consistency from inconsistent people. Peace becomes your standard instead of chaos. And perhaps this becomes the most important realization of all. Being deeply empathic was never about carrying the world on your shoulders. It was never about sacrificing yourself until nothing remained. Real emotional wisdom means understanding that your gift only stays powerful when protected. Your kindness matters. Your awareness matters. Your compassion matters. But none of it should come at the cost of losing yourself. The strongest version of you is not the one who saves everyone. The strongest version of you is the one who finally learns how to protect their peace while still keeping their heart open.